Yeah, I was kind of nervous to bring up Google in light of your situation, but it's like the only technology.
Yeah, no, it's fine. You can ask me. You can ask me anything.
Okay, cool. Well, welcome to UMDA podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, cool. So we met briefly at Night of Freedom in New York.
Yeah.
But I think I mentioned to you really quick that Tommy and I, when we were kind of making a list of certain people we wanted to start talking to, you were on it, and it was just by coincidence
Yeah,
that
before we met you.
Oh, cool.
yeah, yeah,
Oh.
before you were cool. But yeah, so we were excited to have you on, and obviously just us going to Night of Freedom, you kind of get a sense of where we're coming from. But how'd you get involved with going there, and yeah, how'd you end up talking to them?
Sure. Mike Cernovich is a friend of mine, and he reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to speak at the event. And I said, absolutely. And then he ended up having a panel, which was fun with Ali, his wife, and Jack Sobek. So they're all friends of mine. And I said, absolutely. And so ended up going to the event, had a great time, met you guys. We had such a blast. It was really fun.
Yeah.
And it was just nice to see, a bunch of friends I haven't seen in a while get all, come together, have a party. Mike knows how to throw a party. And Mike is also really, is a stand-up guy. And he's been through a lot of crap with the left trying to, stop the night from happening. But the night went on, and Mike did a great job putting it all together and putting, money out of his own pocket. So he's a true friend, a great person. And we had a blast. It was really fun.
Yeah.
I loved that part when Mike was stood up there and he's like, the most attractive thing about the left is they know how to have fun. He's like, I'm sorry, but it's true. So we need to also party. And then he just hits the music, and the cute American girls with the bikini, like the bikini American flag, start dancing and stuff. I was like,
Milk and Cooks did great. I mean, he's right. I mean, it's important to not just give the news. It's important to also have fun and, almost like rejuvenate your soul sometimes, because it can be so negative. It can be so depressing. It can be such an echo chamber. It's important to also have fun. And it's important to actually meet people in person that you talk to on Twitter and have that personal interaction, because I think it fuels the movement even more. The fact that we know each other personally, the fact that we're on the same page, and that we met each other in the flesh, it makes it just so much more personal. Also.
Yeah. Yeah. What's your experience been on Twitter, talking to people and building relationships there?
That's the majority of how I met people. That's how I met Mike, 2015 during the campaign trail. I would follow his stuff. I would follow Jack Posobiec's stuff. Really, Mike Cernovich was actually the guy that really red-pilled me during the campaign trail. And I would always favorite his stuff. I'd always share his stuff. And he followed me back. And I just sent a message, hey, love your work, great job. And we just kind of started talking from there. We've been friends ever since, and know his wife, and they're a great couple. And at that time, I met Jack Posobiec as well. And Jack Posobiec reached out to me when he threw a rally for peace, rally against political violence in DC, asked me to speak. It was my first public speaking event, which I was really nervous for, but I was really excited to do. And it was right in front of the White House. And it was just like, I've met everyone, and we've gotten connected through Twitter. So I'm so thankful for Twitter. That is my main platform. That is where I get all my news, and news get up there really fast, even before it hits the TV screen. So Twitter is definitely, a great place, but at the same time, it's an echo chamber. So I recently, for the past, I think, month, I've been on it way less than I normally am. I'm always tweeting normally. So just been nice to kind of get away and doing other things, right? Well, doing things on top of that. So I can't stay on Twitter all day,
Yeah. I find myself because I understand that echo chamber thing. And whenever I'm following, I try to follow just like the widest breadth of the spectrum, and I always have to stop myself from clicking the unfollow button when I'm like listen to someone super lefty or someone super SJW, just because I want to know what they're thinking, like how their thought process is going. But
yeah, it's important you say that, because on the one hand, it's triggering and you're like, how can they be so stupid? And then on the other hand, you're like, you want to know their arguments and you want to know their points that they use, because you want to be able to be, just like any battle, you're prepared before you go into battle. So you want to make sure that you have an arsenal full of talking points and debate points and facts, and make sure you know their talking points. And so that's the way to combat them, is with facts. They can't really argue facts and truth. We know that. And so it's important to know what their points of view are before you get into battle with them. So
yeah. And we don't want to be like them, where we just want to silence the person that we disagree with, which is kind of how, I mean, this is a relatively new podcast, kind of standing for that symbol of common sense and critical thinking. And free speech is really when we started watching like the guys like Milo and these huge riots at Berkeley and these talks being shut down. That's where Mike and I got pretty passionate, decided that we wanted to start this. And speaking
I love it.
of,
yeah. I was saying to Tommy, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
No, go ahead. Okay.
I was gonna say, when we were standing in line for Night of Freedom, I was like, oh, this is cool. It's great to be here. And then I said to him, I was like, I don't want to be like, it's hard to tell when you're having conversations with people and you're reading things on the internet, you're like, is the culture really still this way? You don't know. It's like, you don't want to be the Jesse Jackson or the Al Sharpton, where like 50 years later, you're still fighting for civil rights when it like ended, 20 years earlier. So it's good to like get a gauge, and try to understand, and like, is this still how it is? Are people still, rioting against speakers? Are they still?
Well, we literally had a riot outside that.
I was going to say, we saw that it's true. It's not fake news. It happens. Yeah. And it's so sad that this is the kind of things that the right has to deal with. I mean, when is the last time you heard a left event being shut down because of these right wingers who were violent and had, little fake bombs in their pocket and, and bottles full of urine? I mean, that doesn't happen on the right. Left doesn't get shut down like that. And, when was the last time the left had to find 3 different locations to throw a party, just to throw a regular freaking party? It doesn't happen. It's not in the news. It doesn't happen. It's crazy what we have to deal with on our side, but that's what happens when everything's stacked against us. The media, the government, for a large part. I mean, there's just so much going on in the country. And the great thing is people like you who want to start a show, want to start a conversation. This is what's happening throughout the country, is that this alternative media, these alternative podcasts are popping up everywhere. And it's wonderful to see people not afraid to speak up anymore, not afraid to, because here's what happens on Twitter and social media. On the one hand, it's a great equalizer. It makes every single person have a platform and make it very accessible, and everyone has a platform. But on the other hand, many people are anonymous. They're afraid to speak up. They have a job. They don't want to lose it. I get it. They don't want to lose their job. They don't want to be shunned and picked on and embarrassed in school. I get that. But at the same time, it's great when faces do come out. It's not just an eggshell, an egghead as your avatar. It's a real person having real opinions, having, real conversations, having a real podcast. I mean, it's important. This is what I've always said for years, that people need to do this. And then I was like, wait, I'm being a hypocrite. I should do that myself. So then I, started one myself.
Right.
And that got shut down, but that's okay. I'm going to continue. But this is great that you guys do that. So it's wonderful.
Yeah. So we did a combination of learning about you and not doing too much research, because I didn't want it to influence the conversation too much. So one of the elephants in the room that we wanted to ask you about, of course, is your show. Mm-hmm. So could you give us a little context and then kind of tell us what you think happened?
Sure. I had my Anna Khait show on YouTube, was growing quite rapidly, and never had any flags, never had any warnings, never had anything happen, out of the ordinary in order to like be flagged and be seen as something wrong with my channel. I was demonetized a lot of videos, with those Crokin and Jack Posobiec. I had the only thing that ever happened on my YouTube channel was demonetized, and then one of my shows with Tommy Robinson was taken down. It just no warning. They just deleted my video and said, sorry, can't, not, what do they say? broke the guidelines. And the only thing that Tommy was really talked about on that channel, on that show, was the fact that he was nearly assassinated by these three Muslim guys who ended up going to jail for 30 years because they were legitimately trying to kill him. And so he was just talking about that and other things that were happening in his country, and the show got taken down. And they have a vendetta against him. They have a vendetta against the truth coming out. They have a vendetta against anyone exposing some of the evil that comes out of immigration. And but yeah, so I had a great show was going. It was growing quite fast, and I had Liz Crokin on my show the last few episodes, and she was supposed to come on again. Liz Crokin is a great friend of mine. I'm sure you guys know about her, and the viewers know about her. If you don't know about her, I suggest you look into her. She's an independent journalist who does a lot of investigations with child sex trafficking and human trafficking in this country and around the world, but specifically in this country. She exposes it. She does her own research. She travels around the country. She is a journalist that has been in the mainstream media for a long time. She used to, cover celebrities and all that. And she's worked for everyone under the sun, Sun Tribune and Inquirer, Hollywood Reporter, all these. She used to be part of the media until she got woken up to what's going on and started doing her own research, and was obviously blacklisted from mainstream media, and does her own work and her own investigations. And she's an independent investigator now, journalist. And she was coming on my show talking about pedophilia, talking about the occult, talking about we're supposed to have a show on Q. What's up with this Q guy and with this, who we think it is, and let's talk about some things that he said, some things that are happening. We were supposed to have an intense live stream going through as much as we can, and we were planning to do it for like 3-4 hours. I mean, it was supposed to be a really great show, and I knew a lot of people wanted to watch it and wanted to just sit down together with all our notes and go through it and have a live chat with everyone. I mean, it was going to be really good, I think. And I went to go visit her in California, and we got followed, a few days before. Not a lot of people know. Actually, no, I put it on my Twitter. But a few days before my show, we were going to do it live. We were followed, and it was very creepy. It was very eerie, and we knew right away.
Private eye or something like that.
It was a last minute decision for me to come to California. I'm pretty spontaneous, and I came to go visit her. And we were invited to this Christmas party that was honoring a bunch of vets, and it was a private party. And it was on a dead-end street. Long story short, we were driving, and my phone was acting all weird. My GPS was acting really weird. My phone kept lagging. I mean, I was like, Liz, there's something wrong with my phone. It never happens. It never does this. And we get to the party, and we're parking the car. And as she made like it's a dead-end street. And as she was making a U-turn on that street to park in this little spot, there was a car that stopped and waited for us to finish parking, and she finished parking the spot and the car never moved. And we're like, this is weird. And we're standing, waiting. The car he had plenty of room to go through. I mean, our doors were closed. Nothing was wrong. I'm like, that's weird. And I look at her, she's like, oh, we just ignore it. And then a minute later, we hear beeping. The cars behind him saying, hello, can you guys move? Like, what's going on? And they didn't move. And so Liz opened her door. She was driving. She goes, you guys okay? There's plenty of room. You guys should drive and go through. You guys okay? There's beeping behind you. And the guy goes, well, we can't go through. Your door's open. I'm like, what? The door was closed the whole time. So we're like, whatever. So she closed the door. They went through. And as they're going through, I'm looking, I was like, that's weird. And as they're driving by us, the guy in the passenger seat just starts waving at me, really in like a really creepy way. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm looking, is that my friend? Because I'm supposed to see my friends there. Is that my friend? I'm like, I don't recognize them, whatever. So they drive by, and I have a really good instinct, and so does Liz. She's one of the strongest I know personally. And something was wrong. And I looked at Liz, and Liz was like, Anna, if they follow again, there's something wrong. Like if they come to us again, there's something wrong. I was like, yeah, for sure. By the way, I've never been followed. Liz has been followed many, many, many times. Again, she exposes pedogate, she exposes pedophilia. She's had many threats. She's had her dog poisoned one day. She's had people follow her all the time, and her friends don't believe her, and they literally come.
Sorry, just to get some context.
Yeah.
Liz, she's the like the
Liz
pizza.
Krogan.
Is she like associated with like the Pizzagate deal and like the pedogate or whatever it's called now?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, Pedigree Pizzagate, she exposes a lot of the people that are involved in that. And it's a true thing. It's absolutely true.
So
yes.
this is important for our listeners. So like she believes that like a third of the government, right? Or what is it? Like people in the Congress are part of this pedophilia ring?
It's not that a third are involved. It's that there's a good majority of people in Congress that are allegedly involved in many felonies, including, money laundering and racketeering. And yes, there does include pedophilia for sure. There are plenty of rings that were busted and that had many politicians that were busted along with it. I mean, you can look at a famous case. It's called Franklin Credit Union case, where Republican Lawrence King was implicated, a well-known Republican, I think from Arkansas. And there was plenty of politicians that were involved in that ring. I mean, there's pedophilia rings that are in the country for sure, and they go all the way to the top for sure. And so, but just so with that context, long story short, that's okay. That car came back and rolled down their window. And I was talking to Liz at the time. It was like, this is weird. They rolled down their window and they in a very creepy, very, how do I say, in a very teasing, mocking kind of way, they were like, hey girls, and made it seem, and they stayed there for quite a decent amount of time, just staring at us. And in my opinion, trying to tell us, hey, we're watching you. And it was a very creepy way. And they did come back and they said, hey girls, and they're laughing, they're taunting. That's what I was looking for. They were laughing while they were saying that. It wasn't like, hey girls, what's up? Like, how are you guys doing? Like, what's up? Two cute girls standing here, it was a very taunting, laughing, creepy way. The next day, my show was pulled off air. My show was pulled off YouTube. And again, we were supposed to do this huge expose on Q and other topics. And the next day,
you had briefly spoken to her in a shorter episode, and then you were planning on doing the longer one that day.
Yeah, she was on my show a few times. Exactly, she was on my show a few times, and each show there was like 40,000 views. I mean, it was going up for the views right. were pretty significant for my little channel that was growing. Insane. And so as soon as they left, I mean, the hairs in the back of my neck. I've been in a situation like that one time, and I was exactly right on there. Something was wrong, and I actually literally saved my life from getting out of that situation. It was in Russia, actually. It was 15, and my mom didn't sniff it out. I knew at 15 there was something wrong, and I saved our life by getting us away. And that's another story for another time. I'll tell you that story. But it's a long story. So so they drove, and I was just the back of my hair stood up, and it was just like, wow, Liz are watching us. I was like, oh my God. She's like, Anna, I get followed all the time. Don't worry about it. Don't let it scare you. They're just trying to scare us. Just ignore them. And I'm like, just ignore them. I was just followed, and taunting us on top of it. And by the way, it's a dead end street. Right. It was like two big guys with glasses on and suits on. I mean, forget about what they're wearing. It's just the whole thing was odd. And a lot of times, if you read stories of people that were followed, a lot of times these bad guys, they make it really obvious that there's something wrong and don't forget about us kind of situation. And they made sure that we understood what was going on by, again, coming up to us and laughing at us and saying, hey girls, we're watching you. And my phone was bugging out. My show was pulled the next day, and I didn't get a warning. So with my show, I didn't get a warning. I didn't get a flag. I didn't get an email. I didn't even get an email. I found out because I was on my phone, and I was like, that's weird. My avatar picture's gone. It's like just, this is gray. And I was like, something wrong. And so I went through the back end of YouTube, logging in through my through my email, and I'm like, what's going? And then that's when it popped up and said, your show has been suspended. Your YouTube channel has been suspended. What? You violated these indefinitely. No button for appeal. Again, I didn't get an email. I didn't get a warning. I never even had a flag. Just pull the next day. And in order, I feel like and people are like, oh, well, maybe there's someone complaining about your show. If someone was complaining about my show, they wouldn't just disconnect it like that. I mean, I feel like they got a phone call from, I personally, that's just my gut feeling. There's someone high up that made a phone call and said, hey, they're getting too much traction.
That was gonna be my next question for you is what exactly do you think happened? So you think it was a phone call?
I don't know. My gut feeling is that there's someone that called.
Well, the thing,
like we're talking about.
Like a government person.
Someone high up. I don't know if it's government person. I don't know. I wouldn't go that far. Yeah. someone important, someone with connections, someone who monitors stuff. Again, like my phone was hacked, and it's just weird things were. Another thing that happened the 2 weeks before, Liz was hanging out, was with one of our girlfriends, our mutual friend, and they happened to actually talk about me just as we were doing this show a little while later. And her phone was being weird again, and her phone was being weird, and it was a Facebook Live video that was posted, but it was edited, and she never went on Facebook Live. And it was just strange. It was just, there's a lot of weird things that happened right before, and then it was suspended, and then everything kind of stopped. So I feel like, honestly, I personally feel like someone was just saying, hey girls, stop what you're doing. And again, we were supposed to have a huge thing on Q. I mean, it was going to go viral. I know that for sure.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. But then we got followed, and then it got shut down the next day. I don't think it's a coincidence that those things happened. Those things happened back to back.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, you can't.
Or it's an awful, crazy coincidence. Just saying, you know. Yeah. And I don't normally say people follow me. I'm very alert. I'm very aware. Listen, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I'm very aware of my surroundings. I have a very good instinct. I'm also a poker player, so that's another thing that I have. It's my instincts. I mean, I go with my instincts 100% of the time. I never doubt myself. If there's something I feel like something's wrong, I always pull myself out of it. And it was definitely my hair back of my neck stood up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Never happened again, thank God.
Oh my God. Yeah, because I remember recently, I don't know if it was an actual Louder with Crowder show or if he was a guest on someone else's show, but he was talking about how they got invited to YouTube or it was Google in New York, one of their offices there, and how they just gave him a bunch of non-answers about all the demonetization, about all of the censorship. And they kind of like they were kind of welcoming, but at the same time, no one really gave them any answers. It's hard to believe that this is all algorithms or it's all things that are that it's bots. And it makes you think, because with your case, just kind of my first impression is like, this is an up and coming YouTuber. This is someone who has an audience, who has influence, but is not there yet. Whereas if this is to happen, if we're going to shut this down, that it's going to cause a big stir in the media. Like no one's going to talk about it.
I know. And that's why I was, okay. So exactly like Crowder has 1 million subscribers that follow him. I mean, I think at the time I had like 5,000, and it was only on for like a few months, which is great for a few months for sure. But I mean, it's such a small number, and it's just, I knew when I started the show, I knew that my show will eventually be taken off air. I prepared myself for it mentally, completely prepared myself for it.
That's funny.
I knew it was going to happen. And that's why when it happened, when I looked at YouTube and I saw that it was suspended, I wasn't crying. I was laughing. I was laughing. I was like, I knew this was going to happen, but I didn't think it would happen so soon. And I was hysterically laughing. And I was like, I was actually at Liz's house. I was like, Liz, come here. She's like, oh.
The first time that I saw you was on the Gavin McInnes show.
Yeah.
I think it was like 6 months ago or something. And you said on his show, you're like, oh, it's great that we have these platforms as long as I don't get kicked off. And then you made a joke about it.
I knew it was going to happen. I didn't think it was going to happen so fast. Yeah. Gavin's a good friend of mine. He's awesome. He's actually at the Night for Freedom. Yeah, were, I was like walking by, and he goes, Anna, and I come over and I'm like, hey, what's up? He's like, I want to introduce you to someone. I was like, sure, who? And he goes, Anna, this is Chelsea Manning, Anna. And I'm like, I'm thinking like, what the heck is she doing here? So I shake her hand, and I always analyze. I'm always, reading body language and all that stuff. And I'm like, she's not happy to be here. She didn't make any eye contact. All the stuff I'm thinking, I'm like, why is she even? And I'm just thinking in my head, why is she? My first thought was, why is she here? This is not her type of friends group, And the next thought was, why is she here? She looks so miserable here. Why is she here? But you see like Gavin smiling and Cassandra's, everyone's like talking to her and she's not interested and like all pissed off, but everyone's being really nice to her around her. And he was, he's introducing people to her. And
yeah, I saw Tim Pool did a video about her going there, and then like her strange reaction or strange tweets about it. Yeah.
What I have some thoughts on that. I wonder if you guys agree with me. I feel like she was. First of all, I love the fact that she basically extended herself out to coming to the party and meeting people in person. I appreciate that a lot. I think that's great. I think that's important for the, for the left and right to be able to see what each other are doing, hear each other out, just stop listening to the fake stream media and all that stuff that are trying to feed us and divide us, but actually come and try to bridge some gaps and talk. I appreciate her doing that. And I know that was something that she wanted to do, is what she said she was going to do. I think what happened was that she got such attack from the left that her left base, which is all she has, she doesn't have the right base. So if she loses the left base, she's nobody. Right. And I think that the left base really were disappointed with her, and she got a lot of backlash. And I think that she was trying to do damage control. And so the next day it was like, oh, I infiltrated this white supremacist group. And she damn well knew it wasn't a white supremacist group. And I think she was doing damage control. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Tommy, did you want to say?
No, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was going to say, it seems to me it's kind of like I don't know too much about Chelsea Manning, and I kind of forgot about her, to be honest with you. But yeah, no, sorry. But yeah, so what that seemed to me, just from what I know, the very little of what I know about her, is it's kind of like on the schoolyard when you want to go make friends with people, but you're afraid of rejection. So you're kind of feeling it out, and you're kind of like, saying a bunch of disclaimers about why you're going to hang out with these people. Because that's what I got from Tim Pool's video, is that it seemed to me that she was hanging out with some people in the past year or two that are associated with the new right.
Yeah, and it
like
seems
in a friendly way, not in like a public context.
Oh yeah, no, and I think that just judging, I think from the relationship that I can see that she has with Cassandra, from what I heard also, which Cassandra's a great girl, one of my friends, that she's open to having a conversation with someone. I mean, Cassandra's a well-known journalist on the right. Just having relationships with people that I think are amazing, and people that can really speak to her and show her the light of what our movement is all about, right? But I think on the other side, with just her body language there, I again, I appreciate her, saying that she came out there to bridge a gap and talk to each other, but judging again by her body language, she was so closed off. Like she in my opinion, if you come in open-minded and you're talking to people and you're like a little reserved, that's fine, that's normal. But she was really closed off, didn't really want to have a conversation, didn't make any eye contact. It was awkward. It was really weird. I don't know if it's because she's transgender and she feels like she's being judged. It must be terrible to constantly think that people are judging you and whatnot, especially on the right when they're outspoken about it, which, trust me, I agree and I believe in the whole biological purposes that, it's a man, you know what I mean? But it might be that too. She seemed a bit closed off. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's important to be open-minded, and it's hard to be open-minded when you're so closed off. That was just my opinion. Again, this is just my opinion, my judgment, just my body language analysis, I should say, not judgment.
Yeah. So that comes mainly from your poker days, right?
Yeah, well, it comes mainly from my college days. I was, loved biology, loved psychology, knew I wanted to do something in science, and of course decided to take a few years off and play poker for a living. Totally, my parents were really happy about that. But but yeah, I studied psychology, and then I got into poker, and then that's why I got into Survivor, because it's a psychology game. It's an awareness game, paying attention to cues that people are giving off to you, your projection of yourself on other people, how they're judging and how they're characterizing you, and how to adjust. Poker is a game of strategy. It's a game of adjusting. It's a game of reading situations, math, and reading people. And so poker and Survivor are very similar, which is why I loved both of them for a long, long time. They're very similar, and that's why I did both, because I love them so much. And so there's a bit of that also. Not a bit of it. There's a lot of it in the real world, because you're constantly, giving off cues to people. You're constantly trying to understand what people are telling you, whether it's, verbal or nonverbal. So, and it's helpful when you're dating a guy and he's full of shit. So,
yeah.
So then you're back on YouTube now, though, right?
I'm not.
You got your. Oh. So you have your personal.
I have my personal account. Yeah. I have my personal account and my Anna Khait show, which was suspended, but my personal account. I upload videos here, and I don't really use it that much. I should. I'm in talks with having my show back on a network, not a network. Sorry. It's called liberty1tv.com, where Joe Biggs is on there, Liz Crokin is on there. I might have my own show on there. I'm probably going to do it. But for now, I'm thinking I might just do my show like probably on Patreon, something private just for some people that have supported me for a long time, and just have a little private show for a little while.
Yeah. Okay.
That
Now,
sounds weird. Not a private show, but you know what I mean.
yeah, got it.
Show with guests, yeah.
Yeah, I
And
think. Well, something I was curious about is with the way that they treated you and the way that they got rid of your show. What would stop you from taking the videos that you already made and just re-uploading them?
Yeah, I was thinking about doing that, and actually specifically I saved, I don't have all the videos saved. I have the videos of my most triggering videos I saved. You know, my Tommy Robinson
Perfect.
video, my Liz Crokin video. So I absolutely can upload them again. And I know if I put it up again and then say, hey, these are the videos that were censored, it's gonna get good viewership.
Yeah.
I know that for sure. I'm thinking, instead of doing that, just putting it on my website so it's there permanently, and screw YouTube, not give them the views, and they can go screw themselves. You know, so I'm hoping to put it on my website. Unfortunately, I think I can only upload like 15 minutes, so I have to figure out what channeling to want to restream it. I'm figuring all that out. I've been kind of all over the place, so my show and that has been taking a backseat of my life right now. But and I also honestly, like, I don't have as much as it's so weird. Like weird and also goes to who I am. Like, I follow my passions. If there's something that I really want to do, I do it. And if there's something I really don't want to do, I don't do it. But I follow my passions. I had my passion to start my show for a long time, for many months, and I did it. And it was great, and it was growing, and then it was shut down. And I thought, I know I'm going to have it back on again. Right now, it's not where my passion is to continue with it. I have other kind of things I want to do, right. So I'm doing that right now, and so I'll come back to it eventually. It's not on my heart as much as it was before. So I follow my heart, and I'll come back on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems to be working out pretty well so far.
Yeah. Works out. I mean, my parents don't understand it, but I'm very spontaneous. You know, my life is pretty spontaneous. And it's taken me on an interesting trip. So
yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's a good segue. Tommy, you wanted to ask her about more philosophical stuff, right?
I did, yeah. So Anna, I mean, one of my favorite topics is philosophy and religion and theology, and really the study of like humans' belief and the psychology of belief. And I know I was really interested in learning about you were an atheist for a while, right? And then I think just it's been like a year that you've
almost a year.
Yeah, can you tell me about that a little bit? And I think you had like a metaphysical type experience or something, or
Sure. Yeah, I was an atheist liberal my whole life, indoctrinated with all these ideologies from public schooling, and went to college, was still liberal, voted for Obama his first term, and then I was playing poker for a living, and went on Survivor. And then after Survivor, I got back home. I didn't understand it then, but I understand it now, as God cleansed me of my poker addiction and not addiction, my poker passion for poker, my passion for Survivor, and other things that I was really passionate about was just gone. It was just cleansed out of me. And I, for some weird reason, had a really big passion for politics. And which is really weird because I hate politics. You know what I mean? At that time, I really couldn't, I don't want to talk about it. I don't care about it. I don't watch the news. I just knew that I was pissed at Obama when he bailed out the banks. And I said to myself, I'm not voting for him again. I was really pissed off as a Democrat liberal, even, I was pissed off. I was like, this is not for the government to take, not my tax that should pay for those bailouts. But it didn't wake me up. It didn't awaken anything up in me. It was just things I observed. But after Survivor, I filmed 2015, got back home, and again, cleansed of that, and started researching politics, reading about it, ordered books, couldn't understand why I'm so passionate about about politics. I didn't play poker, and I was dating a guy at the time. I was like, what are you doing? He was a professional poker player. He didn't understand why I was on the computer all day long researching. And I was researching Noreen Gosh's story. I was researching, famous, I got down the line of really famous pedophilia ring stories. And I couldn't understand why I was engulfed with it. I could just research, reading months. I mean, for like 6 months, I didn't want to do anything else. Thankfully, I had a little money saved that I was able to do that. And, you know, because I'm usually always working, and I didn't want to. I just wanted to read and study. And so, and then I went down a bit of a dark hole in my life where I thought, okay, I don't have any passions except politics. What the heck am I going to do with this? You know, the campaign started. I listened to Donald Trump, and things he's saying is resonating, and I started, you know, I'm agreeing with him. And I was, you know, I really was for Rand Paul until Trump started running. And then he was just took the baton, because Rand Paul kind of had like no energy. Love Rand, but he needs to work on his game a little bit. But really wanted to be president one day. But anyway, so and it was down a really dark place where I didn't understand what I wanted to do with my life. It didn't make any sense. This is I like don't want to play poker. What's wrong with me? Long story short, I had a bit of a breakdown, I guess I can call that, where I was in my room alone, and I just cried out to God, and I said, God, you know, I'm starting to think that you're real, because if there's a Satan that the occult and everyone prays to, that there must be a God. And I have a feeling you're real. You know, show me you're real. I said, God, show me you're real. 2, what do I do with my life? And 3, I'm doing all this research. I feel like I'm being lied to. You know, I want to know the truth of the world. Those 3 things I asked in that room. I didn't tell a soul. It was just me and the man upstairs, if he existed at the time, is what I thought. 2 weeks later, I was invited on this reality TV star tour, where we went through, we had a tour of different high schools and junior high schools to talk to kids about bullying and, you know, drug abuse and all that stuff. And I had this guy come up to me and say, hey, Anna, I'm here to meet you. And I said, cool. You know, I thought he was a fan. And he goes, no, I'm here to tell you something. It's going to sound weird, but God uses me as a messenger, and I have a message for you from God. And I said, okay. I thought he was insane. I was like, okay, I'm again an atheist, but again, searching and seeking. And he tells me, he's like, I got to tell you that God is real. He's like, I'm here to tell you that God is real. Jesus is real. He died on a cross. He's your Lord and Savior. He started talking about the truth of the world. He started talking just everything that I asked in that room, and just started nailing. I didn't even ask.
And you've never seen this guy before?
No. I'm not going to mention his name for his privacy. But he, you know, he's a well-known reality TV star. And, you know, he just kept going through all the comments and questions I had, and answered all of them. And then he told me, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if you ever had a Holy Spirit experience. And I said, I never had a Holy Spirit experience. I don't even know what the heck that is, you know? And then he said, well, something happened to me when I was 18. I was on a birthright trip in Israel, and I had something beautiful come over me. It was a beautiful experience. I felt like I was like on 10,000 drugs. It was just like, and I don't do drugs, but I can imagine that's probably what it felt like. So, you know, like I couldn't explain it. It was just so beautiful. And I heard like singing, and it was beautiful and joyous. And it wasn't just me that experienced it. I was 18 again. It was like 12 o'clock during the day, and we weren't drinking. It was birthright trip. It was really boring. You know, and I remember standing, I mean, it wasn't really boring. It was actually a lot of fun. When you got to wake up at 6 a.m., you're like, why am I here? And like, want to kill yourself. There's all these.
We're not bashing you. It could be a good thing. Yeah. Yeah.
No. I mean, no. I speak about it all the time. Birthright is an awesome trip. It's just very, you know, it's tiring as a kid that, you know, you don't really want to go to all these places in one day. It's tiring and boring. Some places are boring. I appreciate now when I go back to Israel. I was back in October. I have family there. Like, I love it. And I have so much fun seeing from when you're a kid, it's boring, right? So my friend and I were standing there, and pretty much making fun of the people that were praying. Blasphemy, really, saying how silly everyone is praying and how dumb they are, and like no one's going to hear them and all this stuff, just saying really bad things. And all of a sudden, him and I just got hit. We just got hit with this most beautiful feeling that came over us. We heard singing. It was beautiful. It was loud. It sounded like thousands of people were standing there, just like, like it was just beautiful. Like that's actually what it sounded like. It was like, it was like nonstop, And I look at him, and we're both looking around, and I look at him, I said, do you hear that? He goes, do you feel that? We're like, what is that? You know, so I creeped over, you know, I tiptoed over to the tour guide, and I said, listen, my friend and I don't know how to say this, but we're hearing things and we're feeling things. We don't understand what's going on. And the tour guide was like, oh, finally. He goes, this happens rarely, but once in a while, we'll have people hear this and feel this. We're like, yeah, what is that? And he was like, well, you're hearing the Jews. 1947, when Israel became independent and a sovereign nation across NATO and the world were recognized as a sovereign nation, Jews came here and they were screaming and chanting and yelling and all that and celebrating. I was like, oh, I'm feeling energy. And I've always been very, good instinct, really good. I feel energies. Like I can tell when something fishy and something bad and good energy. I lived in Brooklyn, so I had to, So anyway, always thought it was Jews for many years, 10 years. 10 years later, 28 years old, I'm telling this friend, the guy, the God's messenger, the story. And he goes, Anna, that wasn't the Jews. That was the Holy Spirit. And I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, if it was the Jews and you heard that energy, you would have heard it. You wouldn't have felt that. You felt the Holy Spirit. Read the Bible. He says, angels sing at the throne of God. And as soon as he started talk and explaining it to me, I just knew. I knew in my core. I knew it was the Holy Spirit. I knew it was God, and I knew it was angels. It sounds crazy to say this, like, oh, I heard it. I heard angels singing. Like you'd think the person's insane, right? Normally, I was an atheist, so I thought I didn't think I was crazy, but I thought this is weird, and it was mirrored back to me by someone else. And 10 years later, it made sense. Everything he said makes sense. Everything I asked God, and that's when I just knew. And that's when I broke down, started crying, and I asked God for forgiveness. And I felt cleansed of all my sins. I felt so clean and fresh. And the next day, I got on a plane. That's the day I was reborn. The next day, I got on a plane to fly to my sister's house because that was my next trip that was booked. So I'm on the plane, and I just hear this, I hear so much. I have this download in my head of all these things. It was really, it's kind of a bit of a story too, but I hear all these things come in my ear. It's just like, I have messages for you. You have to tell this to people. And it was like, bam, it was like message from my brother, message from my sister, message from my mother, message from some of my friends. I was like, what is this? And it was really loud. It was a different voice. It was a very small voice, but it was amplified in my mind. I knew it wasn't me because I never talked to myself saying, you have to say, I don't think, in your head, when you think to yourself, you're like, oh, me, I'm going to do this later. It was just you. So I wrote all this stuff down. And then a lot of it was things that are going to happen. Like, this is going to happen. You and your boyfriend will break up in June. All these prophecies came true to the T, every single thing. And so, being reborn, you're cleansed of your sins, God talks to you, and God talks to people. And so he did talk to me that day, and everything he said happened. And from that, I was like, okay, I know you're real. I got it. I heard your angels, but now you're talking in my ear and everything happened that you said. I know this is real. So that is when I took Jesus as Lord and Savior of my life. And, I'm trying to be as good as I can be, as sinless as I can be, as righteous as I can be, which I've lived pretty much my whole life trying to be as good as I can be anyway, thankfully for good parenting, but just being more aware of God. And I went from a liberal atheist to a reborn conservative Christian in 2015. And it's been the best ride of my life. And I have to say, and the last thing I want to say is that I was so lost and confused and miserable. I was unhappy, being atheist, liberal for a long time. I don't know, liberal, but all of that together. And then right now, I don't have a lot of money. I don't have a lot of things. I don't have much in my life, right? I have, thankfully, great family that I love, but I have my relationship with God. I am so happy and I'm so at peace. I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life. And I've had way more money in the past. Right now I don't. And I'm so happy. And I'm so happy. And it was so, so worth it. And so I think that and that's actually the reason why I started my show. My show is specifically I started to reach the youth. And specifically drip, not just politics. The underlying reason why I started my show was to drip God in there and to awaken them, because it's the most beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Yes. And you were mentioning that I heard you in the past talk about you had a lot of liberal followers that you turned.
I did. Yeah. I have a good amount that turn. I have a lot that turn against me.
Forks and torches.
Yeah, it's funny because I explained it this way. There's a poker world that I'm from, which millions of people play, and people that know me and stuff like that. And then there's millions of Survivor fans. Okay, and then there's millions of political people. So there's 3 different worlds, right? And so when I came out as a Trump supporter in 2015, 2016, my show aired 2016. So when I came out in public as a Trump supporter and saying, listen to him, he's speaking the truth, I support him publicly, I knew I was going to have a backlash. I didn't know how much of a backlash I would have. It was really hard at first. Because normally, I don't have drama with anyone. I don't have beef with anyone. I get along with everyone. I can always find a conversation with someone, and never felt that. But I have to say it was the best thing that happened to me, because I think I formed a really good shell in terms of nothing phases me anymore. When someone there's an article about me, white supremacist, all this bullshit, it doesn't bother me as it used to. So, I got a lot of backlash from Poker World, Survivor World, which is a ton of people, followers, fans, friends, that I lost. But, God cleansed those friends, and I have tenfold amazing people in my life that I consider friends, that are best friends of mine, that are way better and way more loyal, and just amazing people. But yeah, there are a lot of people that email me and direct message me from the Poker World and Survivor World that say, hey, Anna, I agree with you. I'm too afraid to say it on my Twitter. I'll get all this backlash. I appreciate what you're saying. I appreciate you. And even some people that don't agree with me say, Anna, I don't agree with what you're saying, but I love the fact that you are so outspoken, so passionate about it. And even though you're going to get shit for it in the Poker World, Survivor World, I appreciate you saying that. And so I very much appreciate those messages, because there's a lot of death threats too,
Oh my God.
That comes along with it. So, but it's all good. And I feel safe. I know God protects me, and I'm try to be smart with anything that I do. But I'll always speak my mind, what's on my heart, my passion. I'll always say it. And I'm so happy that I did, because it's made me a lot stronger as a human being. And
yeah,
I'm proud of myself, which I haven't been able to say in the longest time.
Oh,
I don't think I've ever said that. So, proud of myself.
Hey, that's an On The podcast first.
Oh, cool. I'm proud of myself. Yeah.
Well, what I was curious about, did you grow up atheist? Like, were your parents atheists?
My dad's an atheist. My dad is atheist Jew, and my mom is Christian Orthodox. She also was an atheist for a long time until I was, when I was born, I was really young. She started turning to God, and so she'd take me to church every Sunday, or the Christian Orthodox church. I believed in God for a little amount of time, because my mom was teaching us about it. But I think when I was in high school, I was like, this whole thing is fake. Like, there's no such thing as God, and Jesus, so it's all fake, and I didn't believe in it. So I didn't like to use the word atheist, but I was an atheist, because I just hated the word. I thought it was just like, it's kind of like a negative word, and I didn't like it, but I didn't believe in God. I thought, I was also a science freak, so I love biology, and I was a science nerd. I mean, that's all I did was study biology, and I was like, there's no way. God doesn't fit into this scientific world of mine. It just, it rationally doesn't make sense. But then when you have an experience where science doesn't explain it, and you hear into the spiritual realm, and it's happening, and you're like, what is going on? When you have your own experience with it, whether, some people have Jesus come in a dream, some people, die, come back to life, have the same story of heaven, have the same story of Jesus coming. Like, if you Google it, you'll YouTube it. There's so many videos. I mean, people across the world, Muslims that are waking up in droves. Like, so many people are awakening in this world, and it's not just this country, it's all over the world. I have friends of mine who are missionaries, who travel to Turkey, who travel to Palestine, who travel to, my friends are ex-Muslim, they're Christians. They travel these countries, and they wake up people. And I have to say, actually, one last thing I want to just say that's amazing is that there's so many people in the Middle East that love Israel, that believe in God, and that believe in Jesus even, and are too afraid to say it because they're afraid to get killed. Too afraid to say it, but they also love Israel and respect Israel, and they just don't have a way out. They have no money to get out. They're afraid of the backlash. They're afraid to get killed and stoned. It's a terrible world they're living in. So there's a lot of hope too. Yeah, people waking up.
That kind of reality.
Wow.
Whenever I hear something like that, it's just like, it's so far from my reality. In my whole life experience, my whole childhood growing up here in California, as just a normal, regular kid growing up in California in the turn of the 21st century, that it's almost like a movie to me when you say something like that. When people are actually afraid just to say that, just to mention that. I mean, it's still, even in the United States, it's a social ostracization ostracized. Anyways, in the United States, I mean, it's still there's no consequences to admitting something like that, but to be fearful for your life, that's unreal to me.
Well, you know, in America, it's a fear of like a social status thing because it's more fashionable to be a liberal atheist.
I was going to say it's in America, it's almost you're almost afraid to say you're Christian, you know, whereas if you come out as Muslim, you have everyone back you and love you, which listen, this is the reason why we have freedom of religion in this country. Is the beauty of having freedom of religion, whether you're Muslim, whether you're atheist, whether you're Christian, whether you're Jewish. But there are countries in the world where you have to be a certain religion. There is no freedom of religion, and that's something that is very much going on. And there's many people that are afraid to speak out. There's a huge movement in Singapore with Christianity. There's a huge movement in China. I don't know if you know this, but China is from my friends that travel out there, it is the fastest growing country of churches. There's a ton of underground churches, and Christianity is spreading through China like no one's business. Like it's just beautiful what's happening. Singapore, Middle East. I met a few people that have had, like, I'll just give you one quick story. I was in Israel a few months ago visiting family, and I was invited to this missionary, private birthday, private dinner. And so I came there and I met an ex-Muslim, another, I have a friend who's an ex-Muslim who does missionary trips. And I asked him, what's his story? Because I'm always fascinated to know what people's stories are, because everyone has amazing stories of how they're reborn, how they came to God or came to Jesus. So, and I asked him, like, how, what happened to you? How did you, it sounds like like, what happened to you? So he was like, well, so here's the interesting thing about Muslim families is that a lot of times when one person, the Muslims have such a strong family value core, which is beautiful to see. They have such strong family core that when one person changes a religion, either you're ostracized or you change. If you have a significant experience and the family believes you, the whole family changes together. So it's either you're ostracized from the family or the whole family changes together. And he was lucky enough that changed the whole family. His mother had terrible, I don't think he wanted to say, but I think she had an acid attack where her whole face was just, he said her whole face was just ruined. And he was living in Palestine.
Or this was a long time ago.
This was years ago. I think this was like from what I gather, like 4 or 5 years ago.
Oh, okay.
He didn't tell me she had an acid attack, but he said her whole face was ruined and went to doctors and they couldn't fix it. I mean, I'm not, I can put the pieces together. I mean, so in terms of, her whole face just changed. And I said, okay. And he said, well, one night she went to, was sleeping with her husband and she woke up in the middle of the night from a dream. And in her dream, Jesus came to her dream and said, my name is, I'm Jesus. Follow me. You're going to wake up and your face will be healed. Follow me. This is what he said. He said, your face is now healed. Follow me. And she woke up at 3 a.m. It was 3 a.m., which God loves number 3, and Holy Trinity. And she woke up her husband and said, I just had a dream, like Jesus in my dream. It felt really real. Is my face okay? And he goes, go look in the mirror. And so she goes to look in the mirror and her face was 100% healed, back to normal. Miracle happened, and so her face was cured and was healed. And from then on, her husband believed. Her son, which is the guy I was talking to, her whole family turned Christian. They're ex-Muslims, so they're totally Christian. Yeah, I mean, so when there's a miracle that happens in a family or something like that of significance where doctors can't explain it, and biology can't explain it,
right.
So it's what shifts people and their perspective. And again, I had a spiritual experience, and I just knew in my soul that God was real.
Yeah. Me and Tommy, I mean, over the past year or so, just countless hours of talking about just the state of religion, the state of philosophy, and all this within reference to the crazy politics that we're experiencing. And I think one thing that's interesting is that a couple episodes ago on the Rubin Report, Dave Rubin called it the intellectual dark web, where you have all these people ducking and going over and through mainstream media and getting these in-depth conversations that they just can't get anywhere else. And what I think Yeah, yeah. And so with like, you've got Sam Harris, you've got Jordan Peterson, you've got
Yes.
Stefan Moyliner, you've got just this plethora of incredibly, uh, in depth and well thought out arguments that are happening happening in real time. And what's so great about it is I think that is what brings people together, because if you're a little background about me and Tommy's similar background, I grew up Catholic and then became atheist, and I have been atheist ever since.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's this inevitable dark night of the soul that anyone who's been religious and then leaves religion feels.
Mm-hmm.
And that leaves you, it leaves you wanting for more, because you which is the big fight that I think has always been the big fight, which is no religion equals nihilism. So
Mm-hmm.
if you experience nihilism, or you experience that feeling of I think you mentioned you went through a little bit of a dark phase in your life. Everyone does. That's why it's in every movie. Everyone always goes through that dark night of the soul. But
Absolutely. Oh, yes.
yeah, and I think what's so great and so valuable about conversations like this and conversations about that other people having across the internet is it's kind of like in what I'm determining is people piecing together the puzzle of this sort of nihilistic worldview, which is kind of inherent in modern day liberalism, and so even if you have these conservative values, which you might be, for me, in college I went to a liberal college as well, and the economics never made sense of the left to me, so that always kept me on the conservative side. But for sure, I wasn't an SJW, but I was SJC. I was SJ curious, and
I like that. Cute.
and it definitely was like that for a little while. And I think when you're like left in when things go wrong in your life and you have nothing to turn to, I think these are the conversations that really helpful. So whether or not you're believing in God.
Yeah.
I lost you for a second too.
Yeah, you went out for a second.
Hey,
we're back.
Hey.
Can you hear? I don't know what happened. It was just your screen froze. Okay.
That was some powerful speech too, Mike. Right?
Yeah, no, I heard the whole thing except the last. I think when we froze, the last 2 seconds.
Oh yeah, I just said I think people are striving towards something. Like it's either you live a life geared towards death, or you live it towards life, and I think that's
for sure. Yeah, and and to your point, I think that it's really important to have these conversations. Whether there's many atheists that listen to me and don't agree with me on certain things, but have their own experience and have their own their own point of view and their own rationale for certain things. I totally get it. And I think it's important to have these conversations, have people think, and there are people that are find, one to be true and one not, whatever it may be. And people are always, I think, searching. I think that people are really searching for where do we come from, whether they think it's the, the Big Bang or God or whatever it may be. I know what my answer is, but just to your point about religion though, too, is that, I'm anti-religion. I don't like religion. I consider myself spiritual. I consider myself having a relationship with God that is not confined to human being doctrines. I read the Bible, and how do I say this? Like, even Jesus Christ hates religion. When he came on this earth, he hated religion. He hated the doctrine of human beings. The relationship with God is a personal relationship. It's not like you have to go to church. This is why I turned away from God too. This is why I became an atheist, because you have to do this. You have to bow down. You have to kiss this icon. I mean, I was Christian Orthodox. You have to worship all these gods. You have to, you have to pray to all these saints. All these rules. And I said, I don't want to deal with these rules. I don't like this. I hate this, and I stepped away from that. So, and that's another reason why, again, Jesus said, why do we have all these rules? You're making it, you're pushing people away, and it pushed me away. And when I realized that a relationship with God has nothing to do with, church is great, but there's a lot of churches in this country that, again, are just taken over by these human secular ideas, and that are pushing human doctrines and push away the word of God. Those are the churches that I don't go to. And there's a ton of them in this country that need to be restructured. And a lot of them are closing their doors because people are waking up. There's more churches and gatherings of people at home where it's real and you can talk about the Bible and you can have a study and not have all these rules. So again, a relationship with me, for me with God is spiritual, and I, I feel him, I hear him, and I feel great, and I'm guided, and I know what I'm doing is either good or bad, and I should do this or whatnot. So it's and just like Jesus said, it's a spiritual relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and it's something that has fulfilled me and made me very happy. And now I have a purpose in my life. I think and I know that every person has a purpose that God has them do, and hopefully people find them in this lifetime, because it's an amazing relationship.
Yeah.
So it's not religion.
Yeah, that's very well said. Extremely well said. Like I think that, I mean, like Mike, I grew up Catholic, and I remember, I think it was like when I was 13, I started not believing anymore, because it was at that, it was right at like 13 or 14. I learned that there was so many other religions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, wait,
gods. Like Hindus have like 350 million gods. You're like, what?
And it's like, it's not only is they're not Catholic, there's these other branches of Christianity, and my parents are like, oh no, they're wrong, right? Yeah, the Protestants, the Baptists, they're all wrong, right? They're stupid. They don't know what they're talking about. I'm like, wait, so
yeah, but you know what's interesting? Actually, no, I'll let you finish. Sorry.
Well, it's just, that's my first was like just the fact, and I was a kid, like a 13-year-old.
It's overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. So I just like this can't be right. And you're right. Religion, I think that turns more people off than the theology part of it.
Exactly. It's the rules of that comes with it. And, to your point about, to religion and being overwhelming. I forgot what I was going to say. I lost my train of thought. Sorry, I'm getting a phone call. Let me just say I'll call him back. So, shoot, I lost my train of thought. It was amazing.
If he was young, all the different religions, different denominations.
Overwhelming.
Oh, yes. Thank you. You know what I was going to say? What's interesting is that a lot of different, especially ancient religions and these religions that have been around a long time, have the story of Jesus Christ. I mean, he's in every ancient religion. And if you also look at ancient religion, you can also see that they all talked about, and they were in different parts of the world, segregated from each other, talking about a great flood. That also adds up to the Bible. And it's interesting when you do history on ancient histories, ancient religions, they have very similar stories of Jesus was known around the world at that time, even though he was, he was in Israel, designated place of Israel. But anyway, it's interesting. And yeah, there are a lot of gods for sure. One of my friends is an ex-Hindu, so he had 350 million gods.
That's a heartbreaker.
Over 300 million gods, yeah. And it's great. And so he says like a normal Hindu family will have like 20 or 30 in their homes that they worship and pray to. And then he had his own experience where he decided to go to church one day and was basically very weirdly and supernaturally like pushed out of his seat a few times to go into the front and take in Jesus. And he heard in his head, this is a real God. Go and follow me. Go and follow him. And long story short, he's now a prophetic speaker around the world. So very accurate with everything he says. I mean, his name is Sundar. So check him out. He's interesting. He's prophesied Trump winning. Like there's so many, and like here's and the last thing I want to say about this, and I don't mean to push this or whatever. Not that I ever try to convince anyone other like when people ask me, and my ex is atheist, right? So he asked me like, what is your biggest, like when people say like, how come, why do you believe in God? How come the Bible? There's so many crazy supernatural things. How can you explain it? And I said, listen, I understand it sounds crazy and it sounds weird. I get it. I used to think the same thing. But when you look at a book, there's no such book as the Bible where you have 2,500 different prophecies that have been said that were going to happen and that happened. Most of them have happened. And if you read the Bible now, if you read Revelation now, you realize this is all the stuff that's in there is happening right now. And if you look at prophetic voices like Mark Taylor, Lance Wallnau, Sandhu Sansar, these people are prophesied Donald Trump, one in 2012, one in 2001, one in 2011. Like all these have said exactly what's happening right now. Mark Taylor, look him up. Mark Taylor talks about military tribunals, has talked about, you know, in 2011, how Donald Trump was going to run for president, he's going to win, that media is going to be exposed, that Democrats are going to be exposed, that alternative media is going to rise. That he said that he prophesized that, and here's another, like, I'll send you one of his videos. And I say, listen, if you don't believe, that's fine, but see, like, listen to the podcast. If it happens, what he prophesies, maybe you'll start questioning, maybe you'll start looking into it, because he also prophesied 5 different Supreme Court justices. 1 already died. 4 more are going to, 3 are supposed to be involved in a huge scandal, and another 1 is going to die. And so he said they're going to be 5 conservative judges that Donald Trump is going to put in. They're going to overturn Roe v. Wade. It's, you know, these demons, people are going to be upset about it and all this stuff. But he just prophesies a lot of stuff. So like media going down, you know, Democrats being exposed, being embarrassed, which is happening. That Hillary Clinton was going to be on trial on TV for many years, might hit the shackles, that she's going to be exposed, and also prophesies of 1/3 of government. This is where Liz Crokin gets that from, is 1/3 of government is going to not be there anymore, and we're going to have to replace them because of scandals and money laundering, pedophilia. Some of them, depends on what. But yeah, I mean, check out Mark Taylor. Even if you're not, check it out. Like, and Steve, and listen to what some of his
And where
prophecies.
does he get this information from? His firm. Yeah. Okay. So it's he's like a.
And he's a prophetic voice. So he hears things and he writes it down, and never doesn't want to be. He just puts it out there, and a lot of things that he said has happened, and a lot of things are happening right now. And there's a few things that are supposed to happen in the future. Like, one of them is also energy, that we are no longer going to be dependent on Saudi Arabia and the Middle East for oil. That is prophesized, that he said that America's going to find a new form of energy, and so is Israel, right under our feet, that hasn't been discovered yet. This new form of energy that it will be discovered, and America will be able to sustain itself, and so will Israel. And all these countries that we were dependent on, these countries that funded terrorism, are going to be focusing their attention on us, because they're going to need us. And he also prophesied in 2011 that Saudi Arabia, their wells are going to dry up. Guess what's happening in the news? Saudi Arabia, their wells dried up. Now they are screwed. They're actually, and that's, I think, the biggest reason why we have the arms deal with Saudi Arabia and America, is because Saudi Arabia knows that's most of their economy, their GDP. That's where it comes from, oil. And their wells are drying up, and they have to find other forms of making money. So they're struggling hardcore. And there's just a lot of things that he said that, again, has happened, is happening now, and will happen. So, yeah, and that's the way, and that's, I think, the way that, if people don't believe me, that for me, if I was an atheist, I would be like, all right, well, let me hear the prophecies. Like, I used to love Nostradamus prophecies, right? And we used to look them up all the time. But I think that that's one way. And that's the way that God proves himself, because there's one thing that God holds stronger than his name, and that is his word. And when he says something, he does it. And, you know, just like Jesus said, you know, surely I will do it. I have planned it, and I have said it. So, yeah, prophecies are a good way to show that God's real.
Yeah, I think what I get from that is that, if, you know, from my perspective, it's kind of like just these 2 forces that are always, it's just it's like, it sounds cliche, but it's the good and evil forces that are always pushing back and pushing against each other. And it's so, I was talking to my brother, who is Tommy, and Tommy knows his cousin, my brother, one of the smartest people we know. And what was he saying?
He wasn't Sam Harris, was he?
He might as well be.
Yeah.
Love it. Disagree on the religion part, but yeah, I mean, God part, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, he's such a good guy.
Such a great guy. Love him.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? Tommy, help me out. What was it? Sorry, same thing. I just lost my train of thought. What?
We were talking about God, prophecies.
Oh,
the good and force. Good,
the good and evil
force.
Good, evil force. I don't remember. I'll think of it in a second. Somebody else say something. It'll come to me like a prophecy.
Yeah, no, but that's you know, that's basically it with me. That's just a journey I've been on, and I am very happy. You know.
Yeah. Well, do you, I mean, I guess the one thing that I just for our listeners, because we do have a I mean, I know a lot of atheists that are also conservative, and like the way that you talk, about like it becoming a born again and conservative,
Yeah.
right? Like I don't love the idea of tying those two things together because I feel like that
I'm totally separate. Totally separate.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so like do you think that for you they were synonymous, or that's just a
No.
coincidence?
No,
Okay.
no, no. It was a total coincidence because I was first conservative, for sure. In terms of, when you say I was red pilled, red pilling is a process. It's not you take a red pill and it's over. No, when I started realizing something was wrong and I was researching, and the more I dug in, the more I thought, oh my God, I kept going. And then my brother-in-law is, ex-military, ex-cop, all that. And he's been trying to tell me for years. I thought he was nuts. I thought this guy's crazy. His values are crazy. Just he's conservative. And then one day I just called him up. I said, dude, like, I couldn't even talk. He knew. He's so funny. He's really close. We're really close. And he goes, fly here. I can't say this to you on the phone. I was like, oh, so I flew over all across the country to go ask my brother in person. Is this real? Is what I'm researching the truth? And he said, Anna, it's worse than that. And he's had a different perspective because he's been at war and he's seen behind the scenes of evil and all that stuff and realized that we were kind of the terrorists in some areas and all that stuff. And I had a panic attack. When I started getting red pilled, right? I had a panic attack. And what I have to say, I remember feeling like a fine line. Like I felt like one foot was in this blissful, ignorant world. And then one foot was discovering the truth. And I remember jumping back and forth for weeks saying, oh, this is interesting. Oh, wait, no, this is too much. Okay, I'm going to come back here. And I kept jumping back and forth and it was a process. And then I finally decided, I want to know the truth. I want to have kids one day. I want to know what's going on in the world. I don't want to be ignorant. I want to know. So I was conservative and I was still an atheist for a long time. It wasn't together. I don't consider them being together. It wasn't. It didn't happen that way at all. It was a year later when I was, I was just like, what is this obsession with politics? Like, and I was lost and I was left alone with only the man upstairs, and the man upstairs answered my call.
and you've been, I think you called yourself part of the new, right?
Yeah.
How would you define that?
Yeah, that's funny. I heard Cernovich say that at Night of Freedom. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that seems
Oh yeah. So I mean, like when the alt-right started coming around during 2015, I thought, oh, okay, so Cernovich is alt-right. All these guys I agree with. Okay, so that means I'm alt-right. And then, the alt-right was taken over by actual Nazis, actual white supremacists, and took over that label. And I thought, okay, no, that's, we've all said no to that.
But for me, like, I never really understood where people were getting that from. Like, yes, there may have been, these white supremacists on Twitter or on YouTube or whatever it was. But it seemed like everywhere I read that was these CNN. It was
but it was
hijacked. It's sort of like the word.
It was hijacked. It was hijacked. Yes.
Yeah, but even like, it's how when you ask women who are feminists, they're like, what is feminism, and you'll get like 1,000 different definitions.
Oh yeah.
Like, that's what I felt like the alt-right was. It was sort of.
But then you actually had people like Richard Spencer and things like people like that who like, I'm all right. I'm like, well, if you're all right, I'm not, because I'm out of this game. Like, I'm not part of this group. Right. So then this new term, new right, came up. But to be honest with you, I thought about it, and I don't like the whole labeling thing. I never wanted to be labeled, I don't like the labels. First of all, that's an identity politics kind of thing. All these different labels that they succumb to and fit in this little box. I'm not in a box. When I became conservative and I started taking in conservative principles, I thought, oh my God, there's all these different names. There's libertarian, there's conservative, there's all right, there's like, middle, there's all this. And I was like, ugh, I hate these labels. But, on one hand, it kind of organizes people, and it's good to see, people lie. You see libertarian, you want limited government, but you're not as conservative where same-sex marriage and all that you're okay with and all that kind of stuff. So in one hand, it's important to group people together so you understand where their ideologies come from, where they stand. But at the same time, you make quick judgments on people, and you don't have the time to really get to know them and see where their ideas really lie. And so that's why I'm kind of against labels. Not against it, but I just don't like to label myself anything.
It's kind of like clothing. Like, people signal, you have to wear clothes. People have to communicate about what sort of group they're in order to have conversations. But the person wearing the clothes, that whether it's somebody in a business suit or somebody like a punk rocker with leathers or whatever it is, you know a little bit about them. Of course, they're a complex human being, but these labels kind of serve, in my view, as kind of like just like sort of piecing together what sort of ideas people have.
For sure.
And I don't know. That's how I'm kind of looking at it.
And exactly. And then it comes with all these preconceived notions of who you think someone is. And like, let's say I wear, heels and a dress every day, and then I start, wear baggy clothes and sneakers. They'll think, oh, that's weird. No, that's who I am too. So,
Right.
you get stuck into these groups and these groups of ideologies. And there's things that I agree with on Trump. There's things I disagree with on Trump. And so, being labeled as a Trump supporter, I support our president. There's things I agree with, things I disagree with. Mostly 95% of them I agree with, and I'm just totally have his back. So anytime you're grouped in something, it kind of, that's why I'm not really crazy about labels. So I would say I'm new right, months ago. I wouldn't say it now. I'm just conservative girl, like just Anna Khait. Yeah.
I mean, Mike and I hate labels as well. We've talked about it before, but there is a cleverness from like a branding perspective.
I'm sorry to cut you off, and I was gonna say it's for sure it's smart, because I am technically new right, new conservative, so it was perfect. But guess what? That's going to be taken over, and then then you're going to disavow that too. I mean, it's just a constant disavowing game, and it's
Yeah.
Oh man, the disavowing culture is so gross.
Really annoying.
Yeah, it's like you need to say 20 disclaimers before you say anything. It doesn't make any sense.
And people are always going to mislabel you, misjudge you when you are conservative. It just comes with the territory.
Yeah.
Whether you're a Christian conservative or whether you're an atheist conservative, we're all in the same fight. We're all battling the same demons, whether you think it's a demon or not. We're the same evil forces. You know what I mean? So we're in it together. Yeah. And some of my best friends are atheists. So.
Yeah, and every time I say this, it comes off as assholey, but it seems to me that a lot of conservative values and a lot of not just values, but like economically, because to me, it's always been about the economics and policy, how the policy affects the market. Yeah. But I always sound like an asshole when I say this, but a lot of conservative ideas, you have to think about them. Like, it's easier to just like agree with a liberal idea that's because it's just snap and it's like a value,
and it sounds
it's a value statement it's all one statement. You don't need any data, you don't need any history. It's just like we should let. I mean, not to make any judgment about immigration, because I have no idea what my real stance is on it. But just if someone were to say to you, we should let people in because the United States is the richest country in the world, and people are in pain and they need to come in. It's like that. Yes,
and I would say,
with that. I mean, no one disagrees with that on a face value level, but
I see as a first generation immigrant that came to this country when I was 4 years old without having a clue why I was here. My parents brought me here legally. I would say, as a first generation immigrant, I'm all for immigration. But I also see immigration as a privilege. It's not a right for everyone. It's a privilege to be in this country. And I think that we do have to vet who comes in our country. And number one, we need to have a secure border. Number two, the immigrants that are coming to this country, totally agree with Donald Trump when he says this, we should make sure we're taking hardworking people. Like when my family came here, we came with $120 in our pocket. We were on food stamps for 7 months. And then as soon as my dad got a job, barely speaking any English, found a job, we instantly went on food stamps because we came from a country where we had socialism, communism, where we were dependent on the government, and we were taught to think that that's normal. And it's not normal because we had 20 million people killed. When you come from, I think, family.
Exactly. Where were you when you moved?
What was that?
How old were you when you moved?
I was 4 when I moved here.
Okay.
When my family brought me here, because I didn't have a choice, like God knows what was going on. So when my parents brought me here, so that's just my point for immigration. It's a privilege, in my opinion, and especially being an immigrant. I'm all for immigration. I'm all for legal immigration. But I'm also all for people coming in here that want to assimilate, that want to help this country. And obviously, low-paying jobs, where you take in illegal immigrants for low-paying jobs. Democrats don't realize that they're on the team of big business. They're so against big business, but they're helping big business when you allow legal immigration to come into the country and you have low-paying jobs. What happens is then that affects other Americans that want to have a job, and that, decreases. There's a whole thing that comes up. I keep going,
right.
But yeah.
Right. yeah, I mean, to that point, like, you know, it's for these leftist ideas to gain traction, it doesn't take very much. Like,
No.
The point you just made, yeah, of course, there needs to be some sort of system of legal immigration, but in terms of like getting people behind their movement, they're
like you want equal rights, right?
Like, yeah.
You want everybody to have money and not be poor.
Yeah, you can put it on a poster. You can rally people. Like, you can't like give a bunch of data and a bunch of like history lessons on a poster rally. You know, it's like whatever you say that's more conservative, it just will end up sounding a little colder, only because you don't have the chance.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. On a poster, the left has better ideas, but then when you look at how we do those things, they're terrible ideas.
I would say too, like to your point, where the left uses these words like pro-choice and, you know, equality, you know, all these beautiful terms, but they don't really realize that those terms are just used for a specific agenda. You know, when you talk about social equality in Russia, in China, communist countries, well, actually they were capitalist countries that were indoctrinated with these ideas, and you know, the socialists, for example, they're called the Bolsheviks in Russia, that were using terms like equality and all, everyone's going to be equal. They don't realize that you can't have everyone equal. Being rich doesn't happen. So if you have everyone equal, they're all really poor and you're all struggling. And and the people that are in power and that are in control are the ones that have everything on the top. If you ever read the book Animal Farming, that's how it works. Yeah. You know, you have the pigs in power and they have everything, and the whole farm is working their butt off to try to.
No, Anna, you don't understand. Communism has never been tried in its true form. You just don't get it.
Yeah, socialism is a great idea. Yeah, it's so great to just steal from people from their hardworking jobs. But yeah, I mean, again, on paper it sounds great, but then you look into it and dig into it and say, pro-choice, you mean pro-death? I'm not pro-death, I'm pro-life. But this has been great, guys. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, really appreciate you coming on. Tommy, are you gonna do United for Freedom? What do you think?
Yeah, are you going next week to DC?
I am going to be at CPAC. I'm doing Wayne Dupree's show a few days, and so I have a press pass. I'll be at, you know, hopefully at all the speakers' events, and I am planning to go to United for Freedom.
Okay,
awesome. Cool. Yeah, well, I might see you there. So
might see you there. Where do you guys live again? Where are you guys from?
He's on the West Coast. I'm in Hoboken.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm going to drive out too. So I have a bunch of friends coming. I heard it's an awesome event. I've never been to CPAC, so I'm excited to go. And I know that usually actually the people meet at the bar. That's where everyone really hangs out, because it's a bit pricey, some of the events. So, but I'll see you guys at Night for Freedom. I'll be there definitely to support Mike.
Yeah, Tommy might be there. I won't be, but you guys have a good time. And Anna, it's really great having you on. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much, guys.
All right. Thanks, Anna.
Bye, everyone.
All right. Talk soon.